Alright, once more from the top. Let's go, Steve. Chop, chop. We spent some time with Conan Chop Chop. Now, I wasn't familiar with this title at all, but it is a top-down kind of action RPG. I suppose you could call it an RPG. It is a roguelite, though, which means you're going to run through a lot of the same things, over and over. But how did you feel getting into this one?
This game is fun, frustrating, but very addictive. There's two options you can play. You can either play with mouse and keyboard, or you can play with a controller. And to be honest with you, I went for the latter, and I'm glad I did. Because you do get a few controls in this as well. Apart from your left thumbstick to move around, you've got your dodge, you've got your parry, you've got your shield. You've also got your bow and arrow as well as the weapon you're holding. I have to say, using the controller, I found it very smooth. I didn't have any glitches or any problems with this. I believe you used mouse and keyboard. How did you find that?
Yeah, I used the mouse and keys, and it's actually one of my favorite little features I've seen in a few games now, where you don't have to use the mouse at all. Now, that might seem kind of foreign, and it is, but I found that works out really well. With the arrow keys, in this case, controls which direction you're attacking in. And you can use the control button to pull out the bow. You have shift for the shield, space for a dash. You have an ultimate ability that you can use with Zed. So there's a whole lot of different controls, but I found they all work really well just on keyboard. And I don't know if it's an arcade feel that makes me like that so much, but I really do. And, well, you said something about getting these different items and building up your character. That is key in this roguelite. You're going to have to try and build some sort of a strategy around the different items you find, but there is a random roll of these items. There's different rarities, and sometimes you'll find the same one, but not too often. And there's just a lot of this kind of, well, replayability isn't the right word, because it is a roguelite. That is exactly what it is. But it has that random roll factor with the level design as well. You go through these levels and they're not always the same. You might see some of the same kind of set pieces, certain rooms look the same, but the order in which they're all arranged, completely random roll every time. That's cool, but there isn't a whole lot of variety, even with that included. You have 4 different kind of biomes to go through. You start beginning with the woodlands, the forest, but at the end of each of these you face a boss, and that will unlock the next area to go through. You go through 4 of these boss fights, which is a little harder than said, and that unlocks this big door in the main city. This main little town that you spawn in at the beginning of every run. So it's not a terribly large game, but I believe you looked up the price of this one too, and I think it came in around $15, under 20 at least Canadian. That to me is a perfect price tag for this game, because although it's really fun, it's not super big.
You also got the option of you can have 4 different characters depending on the abilities to help you through the actual gameplay itself. And in each one you can upgrade your character by getting charms to affect your weapon, whether it's shooting arrows up in the air and coming down in a hail of arrows onto the enemies, or you can even, like, when you do a dodge, you can drop a couple of bombs and things like that. And again, comes in very handy because you will come across the same kind of enemies, because you do start off with 3 lives. You can increase your health as well as you go along, and you can buy health. But there's one faction that I did sort of find very frustrating, is if you die on the first boss, you're back to the beginning again.
We got as far as the second boss fight, the big snake, and that just defeated us, and then we have to go through the entire forest again. That's definitely frustrating, but I think that just kind of lends to the difficulty of the game. Otherwise, it would be a little easy. As much as it's frustrating, that's just part of roguelite. you kind of need multiplayer on this one, and it works really well. There's local and online. I'm not sure how you're supposed to get 4 people on one keyboard, but that's something for another video. We met up very easily over Steam, and that's really the way to play it. The different characters play off of each other, and if you kind of spec into more of a healing role and a ranged role, I can do all the shielding and the upfront kind of fighting, and that'll work out really well. That's almost necessary. It doesn't look very good, a little bit of these Mighty Bean characters walking around, but again, that does the job. There's not much more needed than that. I was really impressed with this game. I don't think it strikes out too far. It's not very ambitious, but I think it nails exactly what it set out to do. I'm impressed. I want to give this one an 8 out of 10. I believe it really hit the mark.
I'm totally with you. Like I said, it's not over impressive on the graphics, but the gameplay, it all fits together, the art style as well, and I'm going to give this a 7.5.
Conan Chop Chop is a simple and very effective action RPG. The multiplayer and roguelite action is addictive.